In Bangladesh, there are different export processing zones that have been set up throughout the country. These are mainly situated in Dhaka, Chittagong and other parts of the country. So in these export processing zones, the companies which operate, they are given special privileges, and these companies get privileges like lower taxes, better utility services, and proximity of other services for their businesses. So these export processing zones are set up in order to ensure that the companies which operate in these export processing zones, they can maintain their businesses easily in a proper way, and that product can be exported in other countries. So the export processing zones have their own act, which is called EPZ Act, and this was in 1996 that was first set up. And the Export Processing Zones Act helped the private export processing zones and other export processing zones to operate in a smooth manner. So there are a huge workforce working in these export processing zones, and the export processing zones help the businesses in these areas. And the labor law that is applied in the export processing zones are also focused on the workers in these export processing zones. There are various types of businesses that operate in these EPZs, and RMG is one of them. A major reason why the RMG sector is so huge and it's also present in the export processing zones is the low cost labor. So around 2.5 million or even more than that workers are currently employed in the RMG sector in the country. So the Labour Act 2006 was set up, and this Labour Act is still followed. Some amendments have been made in 2013, and that is the latest one that has been followed. So in 2006 Labour Act, Bangladesh Labour Act, certain changes have been brought, and these are related to health and safety issues, then the terms and conditions of employment, ensuring uniformity in the definition, workers' wages, overtime facilities, and better social security. Over here, safety and health issues are given a lot of priority, because in the factories that we see around us, a lot of accidents happen, and there are a lot of risks as well. So in order to ensure that the people can work in a safe environment, these issues are being emphasized in the Labour Act. The terms and conditions of the employment is also very important, because if there are any problems with the terms and conditions of employment, then that will hamper the smooth operations of the companies. And the definition of the workers, child labor, these things are also necessary. These should be defined clearly, because a lot of conflicts can happen if these definitions are not mentioned clearly. When we have wages and overtime issues, allowances, these things need to be clarified as well. And social security of the workers are also ensured by giving certain facilities to the workers, such as bonuses and other things like insurance coverage. So in the Labour Act, more protection has been given to the trade union. That means the trade unions enjoy more legal protection, and they have more rights. The process of collective bargaining has been simplified, and the participation of the committee is increased, which can minimize the conflict and maintain a harmonious relation between the workers and the employer. So this Labour Act applies to the whole of Bangladesh. It is applicable to commercial and industrial establishments, factories, docks, tea plantations, and so on. So that is the scope of the Labour Act. It is not applicable to the domestic workers. So this is outside the scope of the Labour Act, and it also excludes managerial and administrative employees and other similar people in the workforce. So significant changes have not been brought in these areas like trade union and collective bargaining and strike. So, for example, there are certain restrictions on the membership of trade unions. So, a trade union of workers shall not be entitled to registration unless they have 30% of the total workers in the establishment. So, it means that in the establishment, if we have say 1000 workers, then at least 300 workers should be member of the trade union, or else it cannot be registered. Also, under one establishment, not more than one trade union can be set up. Under one establishment, not more than 3 trade unions can be set up. Then there are certain restrictions on the rights of the workers to do strike. For example, at least 3/4 of the workers should be present, or they should give consent to the strike. So that means out of 1000 workers, at least 750 workers should give consent to the strike. Then there is a prohibition of strike for 3 years from the date of commencement of the production in a new establishment. And there is a restriction on the strike or lockout. That means if there is a public utility service provider such as gas, oil or electricity, then that company, the workers cannot go for strike. So we talked about 2/3 of the requirements for going for a strike. That is, if we have say 1000 workers, then at least 666 workers should agree to the strike. And the safety and health committee should include members of the workforce, so that there is harmonious relationship and all the parties are aware what is happening in the companies, in the factories. So as you can see that the section numbers are written beside these conditions. So all these things are recorded as per the labor law, and the labor law tells us that what should be done and what cannot be done. So the labor law guides the workers and the organization. This is another section. This is section 160, subsection 11. So this tells us that if there is a minimum of 10 workers, then the employer should give certain insurance coverage, such as accident insurance scheme and group insurance scheme for the workers. So these insurance schemes will ensure that the workers are in a safe environment and there is no risks associated, or if there is any accidents, then the workers can get coverage. This is section 176. This is telling us that if in an establishment we have at least 20% workforce female, 20%, then at least 10% of the executive committee of the union should be composed of females. So this is a requirement by the labor law. So that means if we have some 1000 workers and let's say 200 workers are female, then in the executive committee, which is suppose 50, at least 5 workers should be females. So these are certain sections of the labor law which have been discussed over here, and we will also talk about the labor law so in more details. So the labor law has many sections and subsections, and it's a big law. So we will just go through it to have an understanding that what are the different sections and subsections tell us. So we do not need to memorize this, but we need to understand them, so that whenever we see a new section, we can interpret that section and we can understand that what is mentioned over there.